to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Demetrius Robinson joins us on the show today. Demetrius is the Indianapolis-based founder and content creator at Home with Savvy, a home lifestyle brand dedicated to inspiring others to live a more elevated home lifestyle. He is also a full-service interior designer in business since 2016. Demetrius began creating design and lifestyle content for his Instagram account just March of 2020. Okay, so if you're listening to this in real time, about a year and a half ago, and in this very short time, he has grown his Instagram account to 97,000 followers, okay? I think it's another 2,000 or 3,000 since I interviewed him only 3-4 weeks ago, okay? And he has done this by implementing a very strong and very unique social media strategy. With the growth of his online platform, he has had the opportunity to partner with such brands like Spotify, Nest Fragrances, Home Depot, and many more. Today, Demetrius shares how he built this impressive Instagram following, why he recently rebranded, and what it takes to create and maintain an engaged online community. And before we get to the show, I want to remind you about Inside Voice, Outside Voice. Have you heard about this yet? These are monthly Zoom meetings with me, with your peers, where you can come and ask me anything. It's sort of like what would Lou do live and in person? Well, in person on Zoom, right? And I just want to say very quickly, there are 4 pretty cool things about this, okay? Number 1 is we are together in real time, and you can ask me your questions, and I can learn about the troubles that you are experiencing right on the spot. The second thing is, so often your colleague is going through exactly the same thing you are going through. And just being there and learning like, hey, I'm not the only one. And guess what? I'm not crazy. This is helpful. And often you'll hear a question asked, I'll go through the answer, and maybe the very same thing happens to you the next day, the next week, the next month. And you'll think, oh, I know how to handle this now, okay? Here's the third thing that's pretty cool about it. It's only $36 a session, right? So it's 100% doable, whether you are brand new in business, haven't launched your business yet, or you are a seasoned business owner for many years. And here's the fourth most cool thing of all about it. 1/2 of all of the proceeds are being given to a different charity each month. That's right. Together, we are going to do a small part in helping the charities that do so much in helping others that are less fortunate than us. So last month, July 2021, the proceeds went to Abide Women's Health Services located in Dallas, Texas. And I learned about Abide through interior designer and podcast listener Brianna Guy. And I want to encourage you, even though this particular event has passed, please go and check out their website and see if maybe Abide Women's Health Services is something you might be moved to help as well. Okay, that website is abidewomen.org. Now, to give you a teaser, the charity for August, our August event is August 5th. It's typically the first Thursday of the month at 2:30 Eastern Time. Okay. The charity for August is the Valerie Fund, which began right here in New Jersey. And the mission of the Valerie Fund is to provide individualized care to children with cancer and blood disorders at medical centers close to home, because they believe the most effective way to heal children is to treat them emotionally, socially, developmentally, as well as medically. Okay. And if you remember in 2019, the Valerie Fund had a tremendous designer show house, which was a great support to many of the designers here in the New York, New Jersey area. So this is our chance to give back a little bit. And our charity for September is the Bean and Stock Furniture Library located in High Point, North Carolina. And I just want to share with you the words of Executive Director Carla Jones. The Bean and Stock Furniture Library empowers designers and students to reach the full height of their creative potential. We do this by preserving our extensive collection of books on furniture, design, and history. We encourage our patrons to live out our tagline, touch history, design the future. When you touch history, you can design the future. So, this is the next couple of months. I hope you will join me. It sounds like fun, doesn't it? All right. If you do, maybe you'll learn a few savvy business tips and you'll do some good in the community at the same time. So go to InsideVoiceOutsideVoice.com and you will be able to sign up for the list so that when registration opens for the next event, August 5th, 2021, you will get the notification. All righty. Okay. Let's get to this conversation with Demetrius. Hi, Demetrius. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Thanks so much for having me, LuAnn. How are you?
I am good. And I tell you what, you just are so remarkable. And when I think about it, was maybe 6 or 7 months ago, maybe it was 8. I don't think it was a lot though, that you and I were part of the My Doma Studio 19 Hours event. And I had the privilege of moderating a panel between yourself and Nicole Heimer of Curio Electro about social media. And the thing is, that was awesome. And you were literally blowing both mine and Nicole's minds along with the audience about your tips and so forth. But I have to say, I remember being completely shocked that when you shared with us that you had started your Instagram account like the previous March, and by July you had 20,000 followers or something, and at that point you had 78,000 followers, and it's just 7 or 8 months later and you have another 20,000 or 25,000 followers since then. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yes, I'm actually blown away by that growth, but I wouldn't say that I'm not surprised because I mean, if you kind of stick to the plan where you see, when you follow the numbers, you kind of know what you need to do. So it's about just showing up and, hopefully your audience grows, but the community is growing. And like you said, I can't even believe that was like 6 months ago, 6 to 8 months ago, because it kind of seems like I was just talking with you yesterday. And I think that's because the conversation was so good. But yeah, I'm just truly blown away by the growth, quite honestly.
Yeah, and you know what I love what you just said in there? You literally started with, you're grateful, all the things, but you said, well, and I'm not surprised because there's a plan and I stick to it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, you know me with my analogies to the gyms and the restaurants and stuff. It's sort of like one person joins a gym and 6 months later really haven't made any big difference in their goals, whether their goals are to add muscle or lose weight or just be better toned. And another person is rocking it and is, lost 2 inches or gained 2 inches or whatever the goals were. And the person who's like, I don't get why it's not working, is like me looking at you going, oh, you mean you have to do the sit-ups every time you come?
Exactly. It's about not just being present, but being sure of what you're there to do.
Yes, and you really kill it. So we did cover a lot of it in the 19 hours, but of course not all of our colleagues that are listening were able to be at 19 hours. So we're going to run through some of the basic things that in reflection are the mainstays of creating an exciting, dynamic, interactive social media platform like you've been able to do with your community. But then I also want to spend some time with the concept of be careful what you wish for, because once you do reach the level of a community at yours where you're 100, by the time this goes on the air in, 2 weeks, you'll probably be at 110K. Like when you're that's another challenge, right? To me, it's like when we are growing our interior design firm and we have up to our first 3 employees, and we're doing up to our first million, and we're like, okay, this has challenges. But then when we set our sights on doing 3 million, it's a whole different set of challenges. And all the things that we learned as a business person don't go away. We have to build on them, but there's new things that we have to do. So I'm imagining the things that you have to do to create that dynamic community then morph into other responsibilities in maintaining it. Am I on the right track with that before I even?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
because I'll say, well, you know what? I won't even say it. To be quite honestly, we're all influencers. So let's start there. Because I was going to actually say as a content creator, but as an influencer in this space, it is, it comes, like you said, it comes with a great deal of responsibility once you kind of, actually get to that level. And it's like, even when you get to that level that you were working to get to, it's like, okay, kind of like what's next and how do I show up now?
Mm.
Because my question for myself now is totally, you know, am I being a great leader over here? Although folks may just perceive that, well, perceive my account as just me posting content, but I have the influence that, would drive folks to not necessarily follow, but be inspired to do the same. So it's about ensuring that I'm doing the right thing from the beginning as a great leader, because I can't have folks, out here just doing anything.
Right. And so I love that. You see, all right, we're going to go this way then, because this is too exciting to step off of. What you're saying is you're having this aha moment, this understanding at this level that now, in addition to all the things that you do to create the content and to attract the following, now you're asking yourself, at a deeper level, how do I show up to this community? Am I being a good leader to this community? And at this level, I need to understand, you're saying to yourself, that people aren't just going to possibly follow me, but they're actually going to listen and take advice, guidance, my ideas, my words as meaningful. And I have to be careful of what I do and say and what I recommend. Is that what you're talking about, Demetrius?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Okay. And so it's the daily on the technical of doing the activities that add up to creating dynamic content, and then it's layering in the thoughtful process of what is it that you're just not throwing spaghetti at the wall anymore. You have to say, "Oh, if I say this is good, this has got to be good," right?
Oh yeah, especially since I work with brands, and I will say market products most of the time, because I'll say it's pretty easy to just like accept all the brand deals that are coming through with all these different brands, but my focus and my question to myself is this good actually? Would I use this if no one was paying me? And is this something that I'm proud to share with 94,000 people? Because at the end of the day, those 94,000 people may go on to spend their hard-earned money on these products, and they just may not be that great. And folks will come back to me, not necessarily the brand, because
Mm.
I was that direct influence for that specific product. So that's one way that I'm very cautious about advertising products with brands, and also how I share products for, affiliate marketing,
Mm.
because I would say the same approach speaks to that as well. I want to ensure that a product is great, and not just me saying that, because I mean, we're in a world where folks will find out if it's not great, and our reputation is all we have. And so if you're out here lying about, the products or just whatever your platform is about, and you are misleading folks, I mean, you're just doing harm to your community, and I would say working against yourself.
Right. 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 So true. And do you find? I would say to you, Demetrius, my guess is that it sounds like to me that you came to this in a very organic, a very natural, intuitive way. You strike me as that this is probably the beacon for the way you conduct yourself in all areas of your life. I've had 3 or 4 conversations with you now at this point, including this one. And what I mean to say by that is you strike me as you would not be tempted to mislead somebody about directions, to the mall any more than you would mislead somebody about purchasing a product. And I should say directions to the corner. I didn't mean to directions to the mall to purchase. I get the impression that you're a man of great integrity. And so my question is, when you add to it the layer of, oh, but this could be very lucrative, are you suggesting that no matter what your core values and core principles are, there's a lot of money possibly or fame or collaboration being thrown at you, so you really do have to go, whoa, 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 wait a minute?
Yes. And I'll say for me, I'll say a great deal. Actually, let's take a step back. What
Mm,
I'll say is that for me in this space, that there's just so much outreach right now with brands looking to work with me. And I mean, I could accept all of that money.
mhm,
I mean, it would be great, right? We would be growing our bank accounts, but in hindsight, we are doing harm to our community and
mm,
we are, you know, aren't being the stand-up folks that we should be in this space,
yeah,
because at the end of the day, it's not about working with a ton of brands or making this $1 million, this the fastest that we can make it. For me, it's about integrity at the core. And it's how does this brand align with my brand? Is this product aligned with the price point that I know that my audience would just not necessarily buy on the fly, but the risk factor is much lower to where the conversion is pretty high. So basically, insight on that, I'm not one to go and market these $1,000 products, but I do a lot of DIYs. It just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like not necessarily misleading, but making sure that you are promoting those products that are on brand. Because I mean, we all have seen that one influencer or person online working with this one brand, and we know right off bat, like, what are they doing? We know this is just a money grab here. And so for me, I never want my content or my brand deal or partnerships to feel that way, like the money was the core of it. Because quite honestly, the money is just a byproduct of me showing up with this brand and doing the work, because we don't work for free.
mm,
And so my goal is to find brands that align with my core values, and also find ways to infuse those products or services or just that brand in a very organic way, the same way that I do kind of like my everyday free content. Because a lot of folks will definitely notice, like, hey, you may be put in a lot of effort toward these sponsored posts, but your organic and just everyday free posts are just not that great. But you want us to buy into your campaigns or support your campaigns. It's kind of one of those things where you unknowingly kind of enter into this contract with your community,
mm,
to where you say, hey, if you support me and continue to help me grow, I will in turn provide you with the resources that are the best fit for my community over here.
mm.
And it's just me showing up and ensuring them that I will feed them not only my sponsored content, but feed them and inspire them through my regular everyday content, so that when you do show up with sponsored work, folks won't question the fact that, oh, this may have just been a money grab versus an influencer doing his job in the most responsible way, and he's being compensated for the work he's doing.
Mm. And so it reminds me a little bit of what they say, what Gary Vaynerchuk says is jab, jab, punch, or something, where it's like give, give, and then ask.
That's exactly why I try not to run a sponsored post right behind another sponsored post. I love to insert just another free organic post in between because there should be a balance and you can't just, just come with jabs all day, every day. Because I mean, I, I, actually, I'll say I've recently unfollowed a creator simply because of that.
Oh.
Because if you are being like, if you are simply promoting a product after product after product in every one of your posts, you aren't here for us.
Mm.
You're here for you.
Mm.
And so for me, yes, your stuff is great. Your content is the quality is there, but the I feel like it's become a just a sales account. I want inspiration.
You know what it is? That type of influencer has now literally just supplanted the brand. In other words, a brand, we come out that it's like a commercial. If you turn on the TV, you're going to get a commercial. You know it's a commercial, and if you see the same commercial every single break for the 3 hour, 2 hour movie, you know they paid for that commercial. You're not surprised that it shows up again. But Instagram and Facebook and other social platforms aren't necessarily a commercial. So what I mean to say is the brand, if they show up every time, you sort of half expect it. But if you're an influencer, you're saying that definitely expect to give, then ask, give, then ask, right?
Yes,
Because you
because
just
in that
become a
way,
commercial.
you're exactly, you become a commercial and your audience just feel like you aren't really being authentic because you're just simply looking to sell something and you
Mm-hmm.
have nothing else to give.
Right, 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 right. So when you were mentioning, I was taking some notes when you were talking about some of the decisions and the question process that you ask yourself is, and it started with, you said this sentence, I love it, our reputation is all we have. And I learned that from my father-in-law, and I have literally said it to my kids over and over again. You have your name. This is what you have. It's the one thing. You'll amass a whole lot of other things, but the only thing that no one can ever create for you or take away from you is your name. And so I love that you say your reputation is all you have. But then you said, okay, does it align with my brand? Is it a product in the price point of my audience? Would you use it? You said, would I actually use this product? Does it align with my core values? And is it product that I can incorporate into the free content to this give part? So I thought that was very insightful. It's like we have to, as we go out and create these platforms, we have to identify who our consumer target is, because like you said, your community is the DIY community. You're a luxury interior designer on the side. I mean, you have another full-time job, right, Demetrius, right?
Hmm.
So you literally could have cultivated the luxury consumer rather than the DIY consumer, but you know the difference between what you do in your design firm and what you do on your social community. And so therefore, what you're saying is you might fall in love with, I don't know, a $400 a yard cravat fabric for one of your design projects, but you're not going to come over to your Instagram and say, look, guys, this is how I use this fabric on 13 yards of draperies here, right? Right.
Exactly, exactly. And I'll say that even to your point with that example, it's not just coming to say we're using this expensive fabric, but educating the consumer who truly don't know. And that way it becomes this invitation to just learn more about what I'm doing with clients. And also it's an opportunity for my consumers, just well, not consumers, but my community to be, I would say, exposed to a higher level product.
So now what I'm curious about is in your luxury interior design firm, because we also have that as part of your business model. That's a legitimate thing that you're doing, not just, being this major social media influencer. You have there where you might be using a $300 or $400 a yard cravat fabric. And like you said, you're not going to come here to this community and sell them things out of their price point. But do you ever mix the two worlds, or are you explaining to us they are separate and that's the advice? Clear us up that.
Oh, so those two worlds are definitely intertwined because although the vast majority of my followers are that DIY person who can't truly afford to hire me right now, and there's also a small amount who are my clients and understand that when I show up with that higher quality product, like they are going to be vocalizing their love for it and their admiration.
Mm,
And so, what I do is use those more expensive fabrics and pieces of furniture and introduce and educate the wide audience that I have, and so that way they can kind of do with that information what they will, whether it's doing their own research on that brand or manufacturer, or on the flip side, you are basically speaking directly to a client who knows all about that luxury interior design world, and that's a connecting point.
mm,
And so, what I try not to do is keep those two worlds separate because what I've found is through my DIY content and my everyday content that I put out, I'm finding those luxury clients to reach out and say, hey, I want to hire you.
mm.
And so it's about figuring out a way to speak directly to both of those people in a way that no one feels left out.
Mm, that's got to be challenging. I mean, because like you had said, you don't want to be showing up on with products that are literally out of their price point, literally out of their reach. So, is it a mix of is it something as simple as, well, I sit here and I evaluate my audience and out of 100K followers, you know, 80% are not the consumer for my design firm at the present. They might be in the future, they might be a potential referral source for me, but they're coming to get great design tips and advice so that they can do it in their own home. So do you say, well, so 80% that speaks to that, but then the 20%, like, is that how you do it? Do you do a mix like that? Or is it you just do it however you feel like doing it? Or I can't imagine you don't do it without a plan. You're
So
two
I'll
plans.
say I share some of my interior design project process, and I share kind of like those materials just to get
Ah,
everyone excited
okay. You
because
share it through that.
everyone likes to just be a part of that. And what I've found is that although my audience can't quite afford it, they're like, oh my gosh, we're looking forward to this room. We're looking forward to this. We're looking forward to that because they're using my like quote unquote luxury interior design spaces as inspiration.
Got it.
So they don't view this as something that's unapproachable. And also,
Mm,
they don't realize that, well, not to say that they don't realize that they can't afford it, but they don't ever think like, oh, you should just be quiet now because you know
right.
that we aren't going to buy that.
I get it because you're presenting it to them like you're sharing good news, right? So,
Exactly.
yes, like so. I'm visualizing it now. So when you're doing your posts that are for your brands and your collaborations, you're teaching them a specific DIY step. I've watched you do it a dozen times on the thing, and you're absolutely adorable doing it. And
Thank
you're compelling. It's like, and I'm not a person who does the social media thing, and I'm like, okay, I can't turn Demetrius off. Like I'm interested in seeing to the end of this, right? And so what you're saying is you're doing those within your agreements with your collaborators and the brands, but then you're just coming over and saying, you're my friends and look what's happening on my project over here. And you're giving them the aspiration of it. You're not talking down to them. You're not even talking about should they buy it or not buy it. It's just like, hey, buddies, come and see what I'm doing today in my design business, right?
Yes, and
Mm,
actually you just worded it so beautifully. And that's exactly what it is because at the end of the day, we aren't just followers. We are essentially virtual friends
mm,
that and when I would say friendships for me, I take them very seriously. And so I take all of my connections with my people online very seriously. And so what that interior design what they get from me sharing my interior design projects is that inspiration and not just simply to try to mirror that space or that room, but plant that seed in them to create that desire or
mm,
that goal in life because we all want to get to that point where we can say, "Oh, I'm hiring a designer,"
right.
because we all don't have that luxury.
Right. Right. Right.
And so it just plants that seed and just, just make folks want to work a bit harder in that space they're in. And also for the folks who can afford it, it just invites them to come and have that preliminary
Mm,
kind of conversation with me about possibly working with them.
right. I love it. And you know what? You know me with my Nicole Heimer just said to me in a meeting yesterday. She goes, "What metaphor are you going to come up for this one, Lou?" you know, but like what I'm visualizing is, again, if we go back to the exercise, analogy, right? What I'm visualizing is if I follow a particular athlete or trainer or something on social. And that athlete or trainer is consistently showing me, hey, this is how you tighten up your triceps. This is exercises for doing this. But then that athlete or trainer is, like you said, showing me the behind the scenes of the triathlon that they're competing in or the marathon or whatever it is that they do. You're right. I would never be like, okay, I am so far from doing a marathon. Why are you showing me that? I would just be like, oh my God, he or she's in a marathon today. And wow, look at them. And I'm cheering for them. And maybe I'm learning something along the way. Like when you run into a problem on a project and you share how you problem solve it. For me, if I was watching somebody, real life running a marathon, like, oh, at mile 20, it's really going to hurt. Right? Like, it's just like you don't feel bad about it because you're cheering for that person as much now. You're inspired by that person. You're not saying I can't do it. That person is teaching you how you might be able to do it, and it's making you feel hopeful, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
in doing so, it's all about the voice and that tone.
Mm.
Because for me, well, back to that example, when I am talking about like interior design or talking about something very technical, I may not use the most technical interior design
Mm.
term. I'll make it very digestible for the folks who truly don't know what I'm talking about, but could quite understand if I made it. If I worded it that way. So I try to, take all of the fancy design jargon out, but when I do insert that, I'm speaking to a direct person. So we can follow that athlete who is, going to be running a marathon, but it's all about how they share that journey with us. Like, oh, not just, oh, this is lots of hard work and you have to get up at 5 a.m. Walk me through this process so that I can feel that it's approachable for me.
Right, right, right.
And so for me, in that sense, I am a person who had, recently started getting back into the gym. And so I follow people online and they're using all of these terms for this body part and that body part. And I'm just like, break this down. Do
Just
you mean
say
the
your
upper
legs,
body,
right?
your legs? Yes. Like, what are we talking about here? And so when they use those fancy terms, I am a bit turned off and a bit hesitant to follow that routine because I feel like it's not for me. It's for that advanced person.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
yeah,
go
I
off
get
of
it.
someone and they say, hey, this is how you do this, and they make it very simple. I would say it's just about finding your person.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I just had a conversation with one of my chairman of the board clients the other day about words, the words that we choose. And it's funny because she was describing how the client was sort of pushing the boundaries of the scope and how was she going to have a tactful conversation about, hey, this isn't part of the scope that you hired me for, right? And it was supposed to fall under the purview of the GC as opposed to her, and the GC had acknowledged it, but then the client was just kind of pushing along. And when she explained the whole thing to me, I literally do what I always do. I pretend I'm the consumer instead of you guys, right? And I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
as Mr. and Mrs. Consumer, what's happening here? And I said to her, I said, you know what I think's happening here? I don't really think your client thinks they're trying to push you out of scope. I said, but I'm going to share an observation with you. In the 5 years that I've done this podcast, I have used the word and heard the word scope more times than I have in the cumulative 53 years before I was on this planet. In other words, it's an easily understood word. It's not high jargon. But I said to her, it is design jargon though. And I said, and I think if you just switch it in the next conversation and say that, this is actually under the supervision of the GC. Remember when he was here last week, he said that. And I just would like clarity. Are you asking me to take it under my supervision now, as opposed to scope, right? Like and she just was like, OMG, because it's the language that we use that can either confuse or put off or intimidate, somebody when we don't mean to. And so I love your point that even when you're talking about your high-end projects and the process of it, you're talking in words that the average bear can understand, right?
Yep. Because again, I am cultivating people along the journey in their life. And so, who's to say that this person who couldn't afford me yesterday will walk into opportunities this year, which would afford them to work with me?
Mm-hmm.
So, all of these years, they have been following me and have been working so hard in life to reach that point. And so, it's like they know who to go to
Mm.
because I've made them feel included throughout their journey and not just like made them feel shunned out of this experience or this education right now just because they can't afford to hire me.
Mm-hmm. And do you think when you've observed some of the other influencers in and out of our industry that don't take the approach that you're taking, do you think it stems from this belief that I have to present things in a way that seems elevated, seems, with the jargon so that it puts me more in the part of the expert, that they're props to propping up the expertise, and you're just like, hey, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, and whatever words I use to describe it, it's going to come through. Like, what have you observed when you see people doing it not quite right?
So I wouldn't say that folks don't do it quite right. I think they just simply do it differently because
Okay.
they may understand that they may be speaking to a total different consumer.
Mm.
They may be speaking directly to 100,000 people who can truly afford to hire them today. So they have to, kind of show up, be a bit more pretentious, and, make sure that they are kind of not only surprising, but making people or their community say, hey, let's hire them. So I won't quite say that they're doing it wrong, but there are some content that I see and I'm just like, wait a minute, this is just too much. But then again, I am not their everyday consumer. And so I've learned to take myself out of that consumerism kind of mindset when I'm kind of consuming content
Hmm. I
because
meant
I
more when you see that somebody is possibly going after the DIY crowd, from everything that they post and all of the print and all of the words that that's their target. Just as an example, it could be somebody going after luxury that isn't presenting it in a luxury way. I'm just saying, do you know, do, in other words, it hits me as you learn this in a learning curve, have you yourself experienced or noticed that before we're comfortable on our feet, we don't maybe show up as our authentic selves and we show up as what we think we're supposed to show up as, and then it doesn't connect?
And funny enough, to your point, that was me prior to rebranding
Oh,
my
see?
account back in March.
Okay.
And I would say before rebranding, I was simply an interior designer that had an Instagram account and would share all of these projects or all of these moving parts of my process and am using that design jargon that is not speaking to the person who's following my account.
Hmm.
And so that's where the rebrand came in because I had to shift how I showed up, how I spoke to folks, and also the type of content that I was putting out. And also I had to get clear on what I wanted
Mm-hmm.
because I could have just like continued to show up in that way to where I'm kind of talking to that full service design client while 7,000 just like everyday buyers are just basically consuming that content. So I was kind of not working in my favor, and I had to actually take a step back and figure out why I wasn't growing. And it was not only how I was using my voice, but it was more so showing up, sharing content that just screamed kind of like, look at me versus
Mm.
how can I help you?
Mm. And so this sort of brings us back to the point that I was thought we were going to discuss first, but it really segues us there perfectly right now. A year and 4 months ago, you had 7,000 followers, and now you have over, I know by the time we air this, you'll have over 100, I'm sure of it. So the thing is, that's I mean, how many people can say that? First of all, like that is like the tiniest percentage of people on any social platform that can say that. And so, what you're saying is that you were doing it. You got up to 7,000 followers, and you made a conscious. You what did you do? You had this, did the tablets come down and they, hey, here are the 10 things you're doing wrong and the 10 things you're doing right? Like, how did you do that? How did you come up with that awareness, and what are some of the switches that you made in specific that you were like, okay, now I'm on to where I should be?
So, quite honestly, funny enough, it was simply my overall look.
Mm.
And that came because actually before I would wear kind of like, suits and stuff like that. Like, yes, I still wear them today, but I was attracting a different type of customer or client from that look. And now it's about just being more, for me it was just like the shift to be viewed as more approachable
Mm.
and just show up relaxed, very casual, but still my everyday style, very clean, very, very pulled together, and just overall elevated. But now I see that just my everyday look and the things that I wear connect with a different person. And
Oh.
so I took that shift. And quite honestly, I sometimes like wake up and was like, oh, maybe I want to shoot this look in a suit. But once I kind of shoot it, it feels almost unapproachable.
Mm.
And I wanted to always feel that my content was approachable for the everyday consumer so that they can actually first grasp what I'm talking about in the caption. Because if your image isn't connecting with them, or if your image makes them feel like they're not good enough to enjoy this experience, they just might swipe past that.
Mm. So I want to pull something apart in there. The thing about it is there is the mistake that one person can make, which is, I don't normally wear a suit, but I think I should wear a suit because that's going to make me look like I'm more knowledgeable or look whatever I think. But then there's the person like you, and that's not going to work, by the way, that first person. If you don't walk around in a suit, you're definitely not going to pull it off. But then there's the second thing, which is as critical and actually very insightful of you to have to pay attention to make the shift is, you are comfortable in a suit. That is who you are. That would be
Hmm.
totally normal for you, probably in your process of interior design clients, to go and do certain activities with them or for them in a suit.
Exactly.
Right. And so it's not like it was inauthentic for you to be in a suit, but you recognize that, hey, this isn't what's relating to my audience. So you take it to a more casual, but you don't abandon it all of a sudden, you look like you're, that drops off a lacrosse truck or something. Like, you still are, elevated and put together and all the things. So that's us finding, I think, Demetrius, that there are different true layers to each of us and finding the one that works for the medium that we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And because before I felt, because I mean, that's what we see. We see that interior designers are showing up in suits and, have this almost just very professional look. But like you said, to the everyday person that you are trying to attract, sometimes that our outer appearance could be intimidating to some folks.
Mm.
But like, it's not one thing that I felt that, it was being inauthentic by wearing a suit. But like you said, it was about just shifting your image to be more approachable so that folks could open up their eyes and ears
Mm.
and just engage with you.
And the thing about this is, there is no, you can't say, oh, Demetrius said suits don't work, I won't wear suits. It really has to be something that you have to find in your own journey. Because, like, what, let's take Corey Damon Jenkins, for example, right? I follow Corey, he's a dear friend of mine. I would tell you probably 95% of his posts, he is in some version of a suit with a tie and a vest and a sweater and all the things. And to your point, even when he is in a casual outfit, it's still like way more not casual than anybody I know would wear. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
Right. And so, but that's literally what works for him. And so it's not that, oh, hey, even if you wear a suit, it doesn't work. It's that first 7,000 followers where you're finding your feet. And what is that, Demetrius? What is that in there? It's like, okay, I really am the guy who wears the suits, but this doesn't work. It's testing, it's trying, it's literally just looking for what just feels 100% right for you, because there's no rule book, right?
Yep, there's no rule book. It's all about assessing what you want and basically just making sure that you measure up to that. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, it was simply being much more relatable to the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, to like Corey's point, I really love Corey's work, love him as a person. And like you said, he shows up in his really good looking suits and, good looking outfits. And it truly speaks to his self and also his clientele.
Right.
Because let's just be serious. I mean, you can't just show up to, clients who are, well, I
El
mean, you
decor
can, and
client.
definitely you're right.
Right.
But some places you just don't show up to with the t-shirt on.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
so it's all about defining your image because your image is the whole brand.
Mm. Right. 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 And it's the brand that you're creating and wanting to cultivate. So you're having that conversation with yourself with, who do I want to reach? And so what you're saying is, when you were showing up as in your suits, you weren't reaching the consumer that you were wanting to attract. And so you had to make the adjustment. Whereas he's reaching
Exactly.
the consumer he wants to attract, right?
Exactly. And so I'll say that before, that was exactly what I was doing, basically, because I am a bit younger, and most of my clients who were hiring me for full service work were much older than I am.
Mm.
So it's like, you're already just viewed as younger. So you kind of have to make sure that
Mm.
you look the part.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's so true. I remember in the beginning years of Window Works, I literally every day, skirt, heels, outfit, the whole thing, because I was 20 years old, going out and saying, "Did you want to buy $10,000 worth of window treatments?"
Yeah, yeah.
You have to be like, something has to say, I'm serious about this, even though I look like I'm 12, right?
Exactly. And then on the flip side, I can't show up doing a DIY project in a suit.
Right, exactly, exactly. So there's no right or wrong as far as listening or watching a colleague do something and saying this is right or this is wrong. It's really paying attention to what you want to attract and then finding the authentic part of you that can connect with that person.
Yes, that is
Yes.
exactly it.
Yeah, because it still has to be authentic. Like, in other words, if you like, if you were the guy that pretty much wore a suit to go have lunch and, play tennis, I don't know, right? You'd still have to wear the darn suit. Like, but the idea is that you have this other authentic part of yourself that is casual and can rock a t-shirt and still look like he's put together. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about clothes, it's hard to be a little bit more flexible in the description there, but we have all those different parts of us that there's truth somewhere in all of it. And the only real no is you can't show up as something that isn't any part of you because somebody else is doing it, because we're all going to see that a mile away, right?
And I was just about to say, confidence is one of those things we can just smell,
Yeah.
Like we can see it just, I don't know, we just exude just however we're feeling. And so I can see, and honestly, not even I can see, but I notice the days where I kind of may put on something where I don't feel as confident. And so I have to remind myself, you know what, although this looks good and you want to wear it, but now is not the time because you have to show up in front of an audience like a 94,000 an audience of
Followers.
94,000 people. And so one thing that I cannot do is show up as someone who's not confident in what they're talking about or
Mm.
what they're doing, especially in sponsored content.
Right. Right. So the outfit, in this case, your example, could have felt terrific last week, but today it doesn't feel great. So that's not the outfit we're going to wear. We don't question it. We got to feel like a rock star when we can put that camera on because it
Yep.
comes out. It comes. We don't have to, And there's no criteria for looking perfect. It's just how do we
Oh
feel
no.
inside because that's what we're going to actually. That's the biggest nonverbal. The nonverbal message is the biggest message that's probably going to come through, right?
Oh yes, that confidence is the finishing touch to the outfit, if you ask me.
Good point. Good point. Good point. So, give us just a couple of, if you can take yourself back after you made your rebrand decisions and you rethought about how you showed up and how you spoke. So you showed up, how you showed up physically, visually, and then in words and in actions and so forth. But then there's the grind, the day to day grind of creating the content. And I recall when we had our conversation at 19 hours for my Doma studio that you said that you are allotting anywhere from 2 to sometimes 5 or 6 hours at a shot to create the content that you put out. And I also remember you're saying that you were one of the first persons that ever told me that they don't create it on a schedule, like a monthly schedule. They plot it out and then batch it. You said, nope, I need to get up, I need to think about it, and I need to approach what feels to this exact conversation authentic for me today. Talk to us a little bit about your process.
So I'll say when it comes down to creating content, for me, first thing is actually, just sitting down on one of those random days and just throwing out topics. What do I want to talk about? What are some videos that I want to create and things like that? And more so using that as kind of my parameters as to the type of content that I'll be creating. And so one day I may wake up and decide that I want to create some design driven content. Or I may say like, hey, let's do some cocktails today because my account isn't just interior design. It is, well, I would say it definitely encompasses the entire home lifestyle, from
Mm.
food to entertaining to just making cocktails to interior design. And so I have so many topics that I could speak about, which probably provides me that luxury to not have to create that content in advance. But I will say that on an everyday basis, it's more so about just making sure that I create kind of like one piece of content so that I don't hit that wall one day and say, oh, I have nothing to post.
Mm.
And then I just become very inconsistent.
Mm.
And no one likes inconsistency, especially like your community online, because once you are continuously feeding that inspiration, and it's one of the things that people may become, they just may need it.
Mm.
And so they may be counting on you on those days where they like need a little bit of inspiration. And I know that that sounds like a pretty heavy weight to bear, but when you decide that you will show up in this space, you have to remain consistent because your people are dependent on you, just like I'm dependent on them to support my work when I put it out.
I love it. And so, what you're saying, I'm kind of mixing together what I recall from the other conversation and today. What you're saying is that pretty much every day, are you like, is it the sort of thing where it's a habit? You get up, you have your breakfast, you go for your run, you come back, you create content. And then you created that day based on what feels good and authentic to you. It might be about making a cocktail. It might be about something about design. And you may or may not post it that day, but you've created something almost every day so that you have the collateral, for example, to then put the posts out, on the consistent basis to your audience.
Yep, that's exactly it.
Wow.
Because I'll say for me, I'll say it's pretty tough for me to sit down and try to batch a bunch of videos. It's easy to do that in photos or in videos that you see now that are kind of like reels where you're basically just pointing and, just dancing. Like, yes, we can batch that all day long, but
Right.
that truly engaging content, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of thought, and it takes a lot of planning. So I can't put that pressure on myself to say I'm going to create 3 viral videos today.
I mean, you know what? It sounds ridiculous when you say it, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to start at 9 in the morning, be here till midnight, coming up with the ideas and keeping the energy going, right?
Exactly. And then you're just like completely burnt out and you just like, in that space of, being ready to quit.
Right. But see, this is the thing that impresses me so much is that is it 3 days a week? Is it 5 days a week? Like, how many days a week are you like, this is what I do before I do anything else? I create a good, worthy piece of video, longer form video, like you said that, and to have in the bank to use. How many days a week are you spending doing that?
So I'll say for shooting, it may be about 3 days. And the other 2 days or 3 days, I might be focused on editing and just simply like a lot of admin tasks. So I'll say for the most part, I'm just like really getting busy creating about 3 to 4 times a week. And that is what I shoot for. But I don't force myself to do it on the days that it doesn't
Mm,
feel good.
mm,
Because again, that's going to translate on camera. And
mm-hmm.
no one is going to listen to you if you aren't confident
Right.
or if
Or
you
just not in
are
the
like
mood, right?
tired.
So, but this is, you see, this is the thing. This is when, we separate the wishers and the doers, because the wishers say, oh, I'm going to create video content, and we maybe do it once every 2 to 3 weeks and we stop it by the second time, right? But then the doers just say, this is part of my routine every day. It's like my husband who checks all of the credit cards and all of the bank accounts every day. Doesn't matter if we're in Aruba, if we're at home, it doesn't matter. He's going to do that. And so what you're saying is for the most part, 5 to 6 days a week, you're going to spend X amount of hours, whether it's actually shooting the video or it's editing the video, the file. Like, you're not doing it all in the same day, but 5 or 6 days a week, you are spending a couple of intentional, whether a couple turns into 4, whatever it is. But it's not like, oh, I haven't made a video in 6 days, or I have 16 videos and I haven't edited them. You wake up, you brush your teeth, this is what you do.
Yep.
Amazing.
Because you have to remain consistent. Because if you want to grow, consistency is the key.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're measuring metrics based upon that consistency. So we can't measure if, we're saying, hey, let's just post like 3 times this week and you go ghost the next week.
Right. Right.
And then your engagement drops down and it's really hard to get back into that good graces with Instagram after you've went quiet for a week. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just be real about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because Instagram is going to say, you don't care about us, so we don't care about your content. So we're going to hide this from your audience and we're going to make you earn that engagement.
Right.
So better luck later this week.
Right, 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 right. Oh my goodness. It's, and that's where you really, like I said, you separate the wishers from the doers, because people, who have, tens of thousands of less followers, you're doing the work. It's not like some, magic fairy just gave you 100,000 followers. You're doing the work, and thinking about doing that work and managing your full service clients and then having a life and all of that. It's not to be underestimated. Every single ounce of blood, sweat, and tears that you've put into what has been a meteoric rise in just 16 months. It's like they say it's the actors that are like, oh yeah, I'm an overnight success, but you look at them and they've been in 10,000 B movies and then all of a sudden they're in the leading role. It's how, if we were to go back to the last 18 months and add up those 5 or 6 days every week, add the hours up to all of those, and then compare it to what any of us have put into our Instagram, it would be like, oh, that's why.
Yep, yep. Because at the end of the day, it's about those numbers.
Yes, and you
And
have the hours
it's
to
it's
prove
it's
it.
really important, but I will say that I I do I would say I definitely lean on discipline versus motivation because if I try to
Mm,
be
good
motivated, it's not
point.
gonna work. It's not gonna work. We're gonna grab coffee and we're gonna think about all the things we may be motivated to do, but that discipline kicks in and say, "Hey, you need to show up, so get to work."
Whoa. That is an awesome, awesome line. Oh my goodness. Think about the mindset of that right there. I lean on discipline rather than motivation. Whoa.
Because I
That's
mean, we can
profound.
scroll through Instagram all day and find the motivation that we need, and we still don't move.
That's really, really, that reminds me. I always have to bring up Desi Cresswell. She was one of the authors in my third book. And she hit me between the eyes. I was like, yeah, but if I have that process to do email on that day, sometimes I wake up, I'm not in the mood to do that email, category that day. And she said, well, LuAnn, I'm going to say what I always say to my 7-year-old. You're not always, going to be able to do what you want to do every day.
And you know what? I am definitely coming into that realization because I too say some days I don't want to get up. I just want to lay in bed. But then like that realization kicks in. It's just like, sir, you don't have that luxury because if you don't work, you don't eat.
That's it. Well, and what it is now is I think what you're describing is you could possibly stay in bed another hour or do something else, but that would mean you would get on to your paying clients. You would get on to maybe a workout, which might be important to you. You get on to maybe a commitment you had to meet a friend, but you'd have to say, yeah, I'm not going to create the content today. I'm not either going to create video today or I'm not going to edit the videos that I did yesterday. And that's where you're saying the discipline is get up and do it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I will say, as one person right now, well, a team of one, there's only so much that we can do, and like throughout our day. And I wouldn't even say 24 hours because we don't have 24 hours to do it.
Right. Right. It's
And so it's
remarkable that you're a
about,
team of one. That's beyond me. It's beyond me.
yes. And so I'm actually looking to, well, actually, I've first done my first round of just not necessarily completely hiring, but now we're going through that interview process with assistants just so that I can step away more of like the everyday admin tasks that kind of
Mm.
ties me down and I can actually create content at a higher volume.
Mm. You need an assistant. That's ridiculous. I mean, come on. Like, that's
But you know
crazy.
what? I think that it's taken so long because one, hiring is it's scary, and
Mm.
also too, it feels really scary to be in control of someone else's
Mm.
livelihood, not
Mm-hmm.
just yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so you say like, "Hey, well, you know what? I just won't hire right now."
Yeah.
But you take on a crazier workload and you're like, you need someone there like now where again, it's also not about keeping all the money. It's about maximizing the money to
Right.
make more.
Right. It's leveraging your skills and talents so that you can, we say all the time, you need to work on your superpower. And so if you are the talent, the one that is not only creating the content for the social platform, but also the one who is creating the design for your luxury clients, yes, I mean, somebody isn't going to necessarily edit your videos the way you might to begin with, but they will ultimately, if you sit and you work with them and they start to see and they all follow what you do, and then what happens is you go on 3 months from now creating content 3 days a week, and you have the other 3 days a week that you would have spent editing to do. Either you can continue to create more content, you can do it 6 days a week, or to take on more luxury clients, or I don't know, take a break, right?
Yeah. That is
Very
so
good.
true.
Very
And
good.
I'm glad you offered that last option because I am also in a phase where I am truly, well, not truly or completely stepping away from full-time interior design, but I will say right now, it's about being smart and putting my time where majority of my revenue is.
Mm,
And so also I want to just be in a place where I can create much more content and also just strengthen my personal brand versus growing my business right now
mm.
because my personal brand is monetized, and again it's one of those questions that I've been asking myself, where do I kind of put my time and energy, because I truly love full service interior design and I also love teaching. Like at the core, I am a leader. So doing what I do now, it's like fueling, well, basically like the content that I put out online. It's truly, it's just the fuel that keeps me going every day. And that's
Mm.
not to say that my full service clients don't provide me with that same level of happiness and enjoyment, but it's about being smart as a business person to, put your time where the main revenue is happening. So I want to just take a step back from interior, well, full service, I would say for about the next 6 months to a year to focus on a couple of passion projects that I have that I truly want to bring to life.
I first of all, I love that you're thinking about. You're basically what I call this is you're looking at your chess game when I'm working and talking with people. And this is a lot of the type of the things that we do with the chairman of the board. It's like, well, let's look at our chess game. Well, we could do this. This is great. We love this. We could do that. And that's working really good. But where's the ROI and where's the pleasure? It's the ROI in the money, in the time, and the pleasure, all the things. And you're at that point where you have options because you've created the options for yourself, Demetrius. And, one of the options I could see for you is you could layer in some support at the design firm and start to be more creative director there, not necessarily pull back from there, but let your brand continue to feed that and supply that pipeline. And but it would require you being a manager and being present and really having that system and that process to have competent people sort of do the 60% of the work there and you being doing 40%, and then still being able to over here to create the content and stuff. So it's interesting. You're at an interesting phase. And what's exciting is that not only is this week that we're recording your birthday, but you're only turning 30 years old. This is remarkable to me that you are so put together mentally, business wise, inside, as a human person. You just are so in touch what's important to you as a person and to your integrity and your core values. And you just seem to have a nice little North Star for yourself, which we all aspire to have. But I don't know that many of us actually have it with the clarity that you do at only 30 years old. And so I'm wishing you the happiest of birthdays, and it's going to be really exciting to watch you and see what chess moves you make, because you do have so much opportunity that you've created for yourself.
Thank you so much, Luann. I truly appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we have gotten to know each other, and I'm so glad to have you on the show and to share all of this with our audience. Thanks for showing up for us today, Demetrius.
Thank you so much for having me, Luann. It has definitely been a pleasure to connect with you here and all the other times we've connected, and just looking forward to staying connected because I truly enjoy what you're doing in your space.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, you heard him. The path to building the business you want is achieved by figuring out your goals, knowing your why, and consistently executing according to plan. We only need these three things to make a successful business, right? It sounds simple enough. Three little things. We can do those, right? Set a goal, know why we want to achieve that goal, and then just do it. Easy peasy, right? That's the thing. It does sound easy, but it's the actual doing of it that isn't so easy, right? The recipe for success is simple, But following the recipe each and every day, well, that's a little different. It takes grit. It takes showing up when we don't feel like it, and it requires us to brush off and get back up after each and every mistake that we make. Because in the course of your business career, you're going to make a few. Take it from me. I've been there doing that, right? So Demetrius has figured it out though, right? He has figured out what he loves to do, how he can use his passion to serve his community, and what he needs to do consistently to get to where he wants to go. He knows he needs to show up. And on the days that he'd rather stay in bed, what does he do? He told us, I lean on discipline rather than motivation. I lean on discipline. I love the way he expresses that. He leans on discipline. I mean, he's thinking of discipline as his friend, as an aid, something that supports him, holds him upright, and keeps him from falling in his weak moments. Discipline is something he relies on when he's not feeling his A game. Discipline allows him to stay on track no matter what. And I like the idea of thinking of discipline as my friend instead of that crazy thing over there that I've got to do. Right? Like it's like so many things in life. It's just a little flip of perspective. And we've all had those days, right? Whether you're in business selling pizza, designing kitchens, styling hair, we've all been there. Your head hurts, your legs ache, you don't want to face the ugly problem at work. Your why becomes hazy. The goals start to seem way too far off. We're just not feeling motivated. But that's just it, right? What do you do in the moments? The thing that you do is the thing that determines whether you are going to make it or break it as a business owner. Choosing your reaction to a feeling that isn't serving you makes all the difference. I just have to say, totally reminds me of Desi Cresswell right here. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, look her up, okay? Demetrius chooses to stand up, keep going, and stay on track, even if he's feeling a little wobbly. He leans on discipline when he's weak so he can finish strong. He leans on discipline to ensure he consistently shows up for his community and for his future self. And by the way, that's Desi words right there. I remember on the podcast, she said to me, what will your 5 years from now self say about this day? And you know why I remember it? Because I wrote it down the day she said it to me in the interview, and it sits right in front of me at my desk here. And it says, LuAnn, what will your 5 years from now self say about this day? And I wrote Desi Cresswell. Okay, so I love that his success has allowed him the space to take a pause and really think about what's next for him, right? Having options is one of the sweetest rewards that hard work and consistency can bring. When Demetrius and I talked about his full service clients, I used Kravit as an example of luxury fabrics because when I think of a premium product, I think of Kravit. Kravit is the industry leader in the to-the-trade fabrics, wall coverings, and home furnishings. Take a look at what's new at Kravit.com, and don't forget, you can get 10% off any one purchase of Kravit fabric, wallpaper, or trim by using the code AWDB10 at checkout. All right? I have to say, my hat goes off to Demetrius. I love everything about him. I love the clothes he wears, to the plants he pots, to the community he's built, to the coffee he makes, right? Keep it up, my friend. I can't wait to see what passion projects you will be working on next. Okay. And I have to say too, if you are in business, thinking about starting one and aren't sure about those straightforward basics that you need to put in place, I encourage you to take a look at my first book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business. Find it on Amazon. Okay. All right. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you so much. I have so much fun doing this with you. I just have to tell you, always decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnn Nigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.